Okay. We are on to chapter 15, in which we have the arrest of Frank the Flower. Now, on the 9th day of the pea shooter campaign, Frank the Flower was arrested. A pea tax spotter had spotted him. A few of the trucking companies had become dissatisfied with Mac's theory about the pea tax coming from outer space. These companies had removed their P-tax spotters from sitting on top of the hoods of their trucks and stationed them instead on the tailgates of the trucks or near the rear bumpers, with orders to watch for any enemy on the ground. One of these spotters, riding on the tailgate of a moving van, saw Frank the Flower aiming at one of the rear tires of the van. At first, he thought Frank was just moistening the tip of a yellow pencil. But when the van slowed down for a red light a few blocks later, the spotter heard air escaping from one of the truck's rear tires and remembered the look of concentration on Frank the Flower's face as he had put the pencil in his mouth. When the driver got out to examine his punctured tire, the spotter ran back 3 blocks and was just in time to catch Frank the Flower sighting on another truck. The spotter did not actually see the pea pin leave the shooter, but when the truck Frank the Flower had been aiming at limped to the curb with a flat tire before it had reached the next corner, the spotter called a policeman and demanded that he search Frank the Flower. When the policeman found the shooter in Frank the Flower's pocket and asked what it was, Frank said that it was a yellow plastic straw that was given to him by a good friend. Just in case I should order a bottle of cream soda, and the restaurant should be out of straws, Frank explained. Cream soda, huh? Said the policeman. He looked rather doubtful. Well, it's my favorite drink, said Frank. Some people don't mind drinking it from a bottle, he added, but I prefer to have a straw. Well, yeah, my wife is like that, said the policeman. And he was about to give the shooter back to Frank the Flower when his eye fell on half a dozen pea pins that Frank the Flower had stuck in his hat band. Frank the Flower was about to suggest that they were an imperial pearl corsage pins given to him with special orders just in case a lady wanted to pin a bunch of flowers to her dress. But the spotter had already recognized them as pea tacks that the trucks had been finding in their tires. Frank the Flower had no choice but to confess to shooting down the 2 trucks. The spotter claimed he had shot down, especially after the spotter succeeded in finding pea pins in the tires. The question arose then, how many other trucks Frank the Flower might have shot down? Frank said he would have to think. This was a difficult question for Frank. He had shot down either 17 or 18 trucks, but he could not be sure which. And on the 2nd day of the pea shooter campaign, one truck that was running through a red light had got away before Frank could tell whether he had scored a flat. And this one truck had been confusing up his count ever since then. Now, some days Frank felt it was perfectly fair to count that truck. Other days he had to admit that he would be giving himself the benefit of the doubt. Quite probably it was 18 trucks, he told himself, as the policeman waited for his answer. And while 18 was not in the class of Harry the hot dog, it sounded like quite a high score. Although Frank felt a certain pride in the matter, he did not want to be in any more trouble with the police than necessary, in which case it would be better to say 17. Frank considered the matter all the way to the police station, and at the police station, the police commissioner himself took charge of the questioning. All right, said the police commissioner, when the officer who had arrested Frank had explained the problem. So how many? Frank the Flower wondered how long he would have to stay in jail if he did confess to 18 as opposed to 17. I'm waiting, said the police commissioner. Well, said Frank cautiously, at least 17? Excuse me. At least 17? At least, said the police commissioner. And at most, maybe 18? Frank said uncertainly. Maybe, said the police commissioner. Now see here, there have been 18,991 flat tires reported just in the past week, and I intend to find out who shot every single one of them. So, how many did you shoot down at most? It was at this moment that Frank the Flower became a hero. He looked the police commissioner square in the eye and said, "Okay, I admit it. I shot them all." All of them? Said the police commissioner. All 18, all 18,000, that is. I can't count by the thousands, you see. 18,000? Gasped the police commissioner with a stern look. Frank smiled apologetically. Well, maybe a few more or less. I lose track. But 18,000? Said the astonished commissioner. Yes, all of them, Frank said firmly. I shot them all. All 18,991, you're telling me, said the police commissioner. Frank the Flower nodded. When the police commissioner mentioned the large number of flat tires that had been reported, Frank suddenly realized that if he had confessed to shooting down only 17 or 18, the police would go on looking and would not rest until they found everyone. If that happened, all of his friends might be arrested too, and that would end the pea shooter campaign. So Frank decided that as long as he had already been arrested anyway, there's him being questioned. Frank the Flower. It's not focusing very well, but you get the idea. Instead, Frank decided that as long as he had already been arrested, he might as well take the blame for everything. It was better, he reasoned, that the police had caught him rather than Harry the hot dog, who was a much better aim. Not that 18 was anything to be ashamed of. All 18,991, asked the police commissioner, as if he had not heard it correctly the first few times. Well, I lose track on the exact number, said Frank the Flower. Maxine Hammerman's map, at last count, had been over 20,000 pea pins, but Frank the Flower did not like to tell the police commissioner that his count was off by 1,000 or more. He felt sure that that would annoy the police commissioner. I cannot be sure down to the last tire, said Frank the Flower, but I've been at it for several days now. The police commissioner could hardly believe his luck in having gotten a full confession so easily. The truck drivers had been giving him a great deal of trouble with their complaints, but he was quite tired of the whole affair. But what did you do it for? Asked the police commissioner. Have you got something against the trucks? Frank the Flower shrugged. I'm just a crackpot, he said. I thought so, said the police commissioner. Being a sensible man himself, he took the view that only a crackpot would have done what Frank the Flower had just confessed to doing. Besides, Frank the Flower did not look to the police commissioner like a criminal type. This was mainly because of the hat Frank wore. It was an old felt hat, with the crown cut out of it and small flowers of different colors, mostly bachelor buttons and jonquils, tucked into the hatband. Frank the Flower put fresh flowers in the hatband every morning. Frank the Flower's hat was not really such an odd hat for someone in the flower business to wear. In a way, it was kind of an advertisement. However, the police commissioner had never seen a hat like that before, and it looked ridiculous to him. The police commissioner felt that it was definitely not the kind of hat a true criminal type would wear, but he thought it might very well be the sort of a hat that a crackpot would wear. But still, 18,991 tires, said the police commissioner. Oh, it was nothing, said Frank the Flower modestly. The police commissioner sat studying Frank the Flower for several minutes. Then he called the policeman who had made the arrest and said, "You will have to lock this man up, but treat him gently, for he's a harmless crackpot." The police commissioner patted Frank kindly on the shoulder. He was much relieved to have finally solved the P-TAC problem. Within a half an hour, extras announcing the arrest of Frank the Flower were all over the newsstand. "Spotter spots P-Tacker," said one headline. "P-Tacker captured," said another. "Tack man is crackpot," said a third. Under the headlines were the pictures of Frank the Flower. Now, when General Anna saw the headlines, she sent out word to all the peddlers that they should report at once to Maxie Hammerman's. In the cellar of Maxie Hammerman's shop, the peddlers listened to the police commissioner on the radio. The police commissioner was reassuring the public that there was no further cause for alarm. The mystery of the punctured truck tires had been solved. It had all been the work of a harmless crackpot. Case closed. The police commissioner's announcement brought tears to the eyes of some of Frank's friends. They realized that he was trying to protect them all by taking the blame himself. For such an idea, he should be president of the United States, sobbed Morris the florist. "President?" said Papa Peretz. "How can the president be a crackpot?" "Not that I do not appreciate what Frank the Flower has done," he added. "He is a hero," said General Anna. "May he live 100 years. Hey, baby. 100 years, said Mr. Jerusalem. "So he can spend them all in jail, perhaps? For so many truck tires, Frank the Flower, he could stay in jail for the rest of his life." Now, Mr. Jerusalem, who was used to sleeping under the stars, could not think of anything worse than being shut in a jail cell. He did not think it was right that Frank the Flower should take all the blame. "We must all share," he said. "We must go to the police commissioner and explain," said Mr. Jerusalem. "No," said General Anna. "If we all confess, the war is finished, and it is the trucks who have won. By taking the blame, Frank the Flower chose, and he is telling us that he wishes for us to carry on. How can we let him down when he is in so much trouble just to help us?" "No, General Anna is right. We cannot let him down," said Harry the hot dog. "I personally will kill 10 tires for Frank the Flower this very afternoon." "Wait," said Eddie Maroney. "As long as Frank the Flower is in jail, we cannot kill any more tires." "Well, why not?" said Harry the hot dog. "Do you not agree with General Anna that we must carry on?" "I always agree with General Anna," said Eddie Maroney. "Of course, we must win the war. I am only pointing out that if there are any more flat tires, the police commissioner will know that Frank the Flower's story was false, and that his story was false, that he himself had killed all the trucks, and the police will begin to look again. And now that they know what to look for, how long do you think it will be before they are arresting every cart peddler in the city?" "Eddie Maroney is right," thought General Anna. "Everyone will turn in his shooter and ammunition before leaving Maxie Hammerman's shop tonight." "Everyone?" said Harry the hot dog. Harry the hot dog had had more fun shooting at truck tires than he ever had had in his whole life. He was proud of holding the record for the most tires killed, and he was even a little jealous that Frank the Flower, who had killed only 17 or 18 tires, should be getting all the credit in the newspapers. "Believe me," said General Anna, It is not the end of the war. It is only the end of the pea shooter campaign. We must find a new weapon. I think we could do one more chapter today. Chapter 16, Big Mo's Attack on the Police Commissioner. It was fortunate that General Anna had called in all the pea shooters on the day of Frank the Flower's arrest. For the day after Frank's arrest, the newspaper headline read, Big Mo calls police commissioner a big dope. Now, Big Mo of the trucking company said that the police commissioner was a fool to believe Frank the Flower's story. Big Mo pointed out that it was impossible for Frank the Flower to have been in all the places at the same time where the trucks were being shot down, even if he was a crackpot. Big Mo gave as proof the fact that 2 mammoth moving trucks had been shot down on the first morning of the pea shooter campaign. One of those trucks was shot down at 10:05 a.m. on 179th Street, and the other at 10:07 a.m. on 2nd Street. Now you tell me, how could any man travel 177 blocks in 2 minutes? Big Mo asked, especially in New York traffic, he added. Big Mo claimed that there was obviously a widespread conspiracy. He demanded that the police commissioner appoint a special P-TAC task force to search for the other P-TACers. As setting up a P-TAC task force would be admitting that he had been a big dope to believe Frank the Flower, the police commissioner told Big Mo to go sit on a P-TAC. Big Mo did not take the police commissioner's advice. Instead, he called the mayor, Emmett P. Cudd. Now, Mayor Emmett P. Cudd was very concerned about the trouble the trucks were having. After Mayor Cudd's famous peanut butter speech, Big Mo had made the mayor a present in the order of 1,000 shares of stock in Mammoth Moving Company as a token of appreciation for all that Mayor Cudd had been doing for big business. The Tiger and Louis Livergreen naturally had not wanted to be outdone by Big Mo in bribery, so they too had given Mayor Cudd tokens of their appreciation in the form of 1,000 shares in Tiger Trucking and the same number of shares in Lima. Now, with all these tokens of appreciation, the mayor could not help but having a real interest in the trucking business. As a result, Mayor Cudd and the Big Three were all on the friendliest of terms. They played cards together every Friday night, and the mayor was kept well informed about the recent trucking problems. Your problems are my problems, the mayor frequently said to the three. Therefore, when Big Mo called the mayor to say, speaking as a friend, I think you ought to have the police commissioner appoint a P-TAC task force to get to the bottom of this conspiracy. The mayor took it as a friendly suggestion. He passed it on to the police commissioner. Now, the police commissioner did not take it as a friendly suggestion, but he had no choice. He therefore organized the P-TAC task force and ordered the squad to comb the city for P-TACs, or for P-TACers. However, thanks to General Anna's orders, there was nothing for the squad to find. All the ammunition was locked in Maxine Hammerman's basement, and no trucks were shot down for 3 full days. Well, people said, never underestimate the power of a crackpot. There was even a little disappointment among the general public that all the excitement was over. The mysterious attack on the trucks had become a popular topic of conversation, and there had been a great deal of friendly betting on the daily tire casualties total. There were 2 theories to account for the 177 blocks that so disturbed Big Mo. One theory was that Frank the Flower had a helicopter. The second and more widely held explanation was that Frank had shot down the truck on 2nd Street, but that the flat on 179th Street was caused by just an ordinary nail. Now, the failure of the P-TAC task force to find a widespread conspiracy or even one other assailant made Big Mo look foolish. The failure of the P-TAC squad to find a widespread conspiracy made Big Mo look foolish, which cheered up the police commissioner. The headlines now read, "Police Commissioner says Big Mo has big imagination." "I always thought Frank the Flower was an honest man," the police commissioner told reporters. "I can usually spot a crackpot when I see one." But the police commissioner had cheered up a little too soon, for the day after he spoke his mind, new outbreaks of flat tires were reported. The reports came from 3 completely different sections of the city. All right, I will continue maybe later today. Thanks.